Anybody who's ever worked really hard and long on a project, you know the kind you put your blood, sweat, and tears into, the kind that you just at the end of the day you're just exhausted from, you think about all day long, all night long, all the time, no matter where you are, what you're doing, to just be pulled from that project, or for somebody to swipe in at the end and some changes come about and they end up stealing that project from you or taking over. It can be so frustrating. I know the feeling years back from being on various job sites and not seeing the end result, what I went through. So I can't imagine what these treasure hunters, finders keepers went through when they put all this work, all this time, all this energy, and all this money into finding this lost Civil War gold up in Dents Run, and have the FBI come in and tell them that there's nothing there and not even let them be up there for the dig. It's a very crazy story, one that I can't even do justice trying to describe myself, one that gets me very excited and frustrated at the same time. So recently, my dad and I took a little trip up just to see the site for ourselves. We wanted to see if we could find it and to do a little bit of research ourselves in person. So we found a spot to park back Dents Run Road off to the side where we could walk into state lands without crossing over anybody's property or not disturbing anybody. We found a ravine. We just walked up the hill, up the steep hillside.
Where is this the old Jeep?
We knew down below toward town that there was a bunch of residents and camps and stuff, and we didn't disturb them or trespass, so we made sure we were up on state lands at the whole time. Partway up the hill, we discovered this little sort of deer path or elk path, maybe, a little slight bench that was cut in the hillside. We walked across it for a bit, but soon determined that it couldn't be big enough for any equipment to go up, and it was more or less just a path for animals, but it was still just kind of neat to see. As we're going about this, obviously there was not very good cell phone service or anything, so we couldn't look at our phones as far as the websites from Finders Keepers USA or anything. We just had to go by our memories and what the descriptions from the papers said. Eventually, as we came up the hill, we found an old logging road, or you might call it a Jeep trail, but it was a lot more sufficient, and we felt that we were on the right path at that time. It had been established a long time ago. It's hard to say if it was there or not before the gold was hidden. I'd like to believe that it was put in afterwards, but either way, we felt for certain it was the same road that the FBI and the diggers came up. They brought the excavator up to dig up the lost gold. We just weren't exactly sure which direction to head, but we just kept our eyes open as we just walked along to try to figure it out for any signs of digging or activity, such as this log to the right that was cut up. But if you notice, this is awesome country up here, God's country. Very steep, very mountainous, beautiful place. Very rural too. The kind of place that you don't hear cars or see lights. It's just very back in the woods, very secluded.
How long do you think these trees have been fallen?
It was a nice day. There was luckily no snow or anything. Definitely lots of leaves about. But we still felt pretty certain that we could figure out where the excavation had taken place. We knew from some of the pictures it was some of a flat area, somewhat of an area that they didn't really have to put a ton of effort into to get the gold. They didn't have to cut a bench or anything. It was basically kind of right there already. So we didn't feel we had to venture too far off the path. As we kept coming across logs such as the ones we just ducked under, we were trying to determine how long they had been there, because we knew that the excavation took place 5 years ago. So if they had been there longer than that, then that obviously wasn't the area. But some of them might have fallen since then. It's kind of hard to tell for sure, but you almost have to look at the dirt from the roots to determine that factor. Much of the tram road had moss on it, so it was actually pretty soft walking, and you could walk up there pretty stealthily. There was a fair amount of brush on it. We figured though the excavator could have just tracked across it without really disturbing it much, but then we got thinking about the stories of the side-by-sides and the gators going up and down. So after a while of going clear up toward the top where there's no strip mine, we found some thicker vegetation, and we kind of decided that we were up a little bit too far. It all looked like that it had been there for quite a while, and if they had been digging there 5 years ago, they would have cleared it out or trampled over it. It wouldn't be in the shape that it was in at this point today. So again, we didn't go clear up to the top of the hill where our topo map showed an old strip mine, a rather large one. So this would have been the road going up to it. But we were pretty confident that the dig did not take place up here any further.
It being wrong and the chance of being absolutely nothing there, like there had to have been something there.
Right.
And they're denying that there was nothing there, you know, like how could you get a reading that there was something there that had the density of gold and then come back and say there was nothing there, you know?
Yeah, at least have a big rock or something that
Yeah.
would have iron or something in it. You could at least say this was our big mass.
But to bring those guys back up in the next day and show them an empty hole and said there was absolutely nothing there. Because I mean, it's government's money.
Yeah, just the whole.
But like the movie rights or whatever to it. But I also think it's federal government's money, but it's on Pennsylvania state ground, so then there's a war there.
I would think part of it in Pennsylvania.
As we came back down the hill and approached the big bend, the big hollow, we noticed the trees and how they kind of looked a little bit familiar. Then my dad pointed out how the hillside looked like it had been dug away. I then went up to investigate a little bit further. This was definitely an area that had been dug with a machine, but it's hard to tell how long ago. I just kind of surmised that it was maybe just, since it was on that bend in a hollow there, that the water might have eroded something, they might have had to rebuild it up. He persisted that this area really looked unnatural. But of course, we didn't have any cell phone service or anything to look back on. But after we got back into signal and service, we were on the website and we saw a picture. And sure enough, on that bend is right where the government was digging for that gold. They had a Cabelco excavator. It was on rubber tracks, little blade on the front, and that's where they dug down. They also have a hammer with them, which there have been reports that the neighbors in the town, in the middle of the night, the one night, they saw spotlights and they heard jackhammering for hours upon hours in the middle of the night when the treasure hunters were actually at home and they told nothing was going on. They were supposed to go back there the next day, meet up, and watch the rest of the dig. When they got back there the next morning, they were told that there was a big issue with water. There was a little bit of a feud with the DCNR. Some things were out of line, and they weren't allowed up on the hill. But in reality, they were finishing cleaning out the hole that they had took the gold out from the night before. And different residents in this town can attest to that, seeing all the SUVs and whatnot. So as we're walking down the road, we could see that all these limbs had been cut and thrown off this side, so this path had been traveled on in more recent years.
Looks like it's been a staging area.
And as we were coming down, we noticed some pins in the woods, orange and pink. They're kind of hard to see, but we'll walk up to them soon here. They went in a straight line.
Stakes going down through.
So we thought that they might be some significant marker or landmark tied to the dig. But as we got up to them closer, we realized that they were property boundaries separating the state lands from the residents of Dents Run. So if you look down through the woods there, they go in a straight line. There's more pins, and this is the property boundary. There's also paint marks on the trees. So we're guessing, after all this had taken place 5 years ago, that this was marked out so people would not trespass onto their land. Just nice country up there. You can see some elk in the field as we make our way out. Just a very nice day for the walk in the woods, and we ultimately found the spot where they extracted the gold. Now hopefully the rest of the story comes out soon and the FBI admits it all.